It's your boy, the real McCoy, coming at you. We talking about one of my favorite sports, a sport that I'm very passionate about, and that's the sport of boxing. You know what I mean? I wanted to do a video on the history of boxing, the origins, where it came from, and compare it to where it is today. A lot of people have different views, different opinions as far as how they look at the sport of boxing, what entertains them, what doesn't entertain them, what's exciting, what's boring. Just to look at, where it started off at and where it is today, you know what I mean? So something that I'm very passionate about because I love boxing. And I just wanted to do, because I usually do, as far as boxing, because usually if you go back and look at my prior videos, when I do a video, it's usually on a specific topic. I talk about that specific topic and I break it down and things like that. So when I usually do boxing, because it's not like Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, where there's games once a week like the NFL, or 2 or 3 or 4 games a week in the NBA, or baseball, things like that. Boxing is it's different. There's no season for it. In the beginning of the season, end of the season, it could be a big fight any time of the calendar year, So, and that's why I usually do a video on boxing when there's a big fight coming up. But I was like, instead of just waiting around for that, I want to just talk about boxing with the fellow boxing fans out there. I'm one of the ones who I love boxing. I'm like the boxing guru in my family. You know what I mean? My brothers, my daddy, my uncle, my homies, and all that. Whenever they want to know something about a fighter or a match, a big fight's coming up, who I think gonna win, or if I want to break it down, they come to me. I'm not gonna say I'm an expert, or I know the ins and outs. I'm a trainer, anything like that. I'm just an average guy who loves boxing. I love the sport. I know the sport. I'm no trainer, anything, but I'm just one of those type of people that if I was to sit down with a so-called expert, boxing expert, I could have an intelligent, engaging conversation with them. They wouldn't just completely lose me or confuse me, you know what I mean? So, but not boasting or bragging or arrogant. I'm a very humble person, humble dude. That's just what it is, you know what I mean? Everybody has their passions. Everybody has things they know a lot about. It is what it is. And boxing is just one of mine. But anyway, just to get right into it, there's no set day, or like this specific day and time where boxing first originated from. If you go back and look as far back as you possibly can, as far as two men, it wasn't like a war between two countries and anything like that. As far as two men engaging in hand-to-hand combat for entertainment or whatever purposes it may have been for, it goes back to North Africa in 4000 BC. And that's what the earliest that which is a long time. That's the earliest. That's pretty early. About North Africa in 4000 BC, and that's the earliest. That's kind of where it could have been before, but as far as people were talking about it, or there was drawings inside of a cave and things like that. You know what I mean? So I don't want to turn it into no history class and anything like that, but about 4000 BC, North Africa. As years went on, the Greeks and the Romans, they made it popular, and they're famous. The Greeks and Romans are famous for a lot of things, but they made it popular. It still wasn't called boxing at the time, but they made the sport. They made it sport. Even though they made it popular. And back then, the Greeks and Romans, most of the guys that were fighting were either criminals and or slaves. The slaves were fighting. Some were fighting for their freedom. Compared to today, it's a little bit different now. Nowadays, nobody's enslaved, anything like that. Especially the amount of money a lot of these guys are making. Or they were fighting because their owners were making them fight for their own entertainment purposes, you know, and or they were usually criminals. One criminal was fighting another criminal for punishment, or for they were told to do so, you know, and that was their punishment. He had to fight. Some guys said they fought to the death, you know, hand-to-hand combat boxing to the death. So, but they made it famous and popular back then, and but yeah, that's kind of where it kind of started to grow with the Greeks and the Romans, and Augustus, who was a Roman emperor. He banned it. He banned. I say there wasn't a sport yet. It wasn't quite a name for it at that particular time. A lot of people just called it pugilism, something like that. You know what I mean? Where two men engage in hand-to-hand combat. They just called it boxing. Well, he banned that. And Augustus was a Roman emperor. He banned it, and he was emperor from trying to touch up on my history. I think from 27 BC until 14 AD, I believe, and that's when he was emperor. And he banned it. It was getting guys were getting killed. Because back then it wasn't murder. It was just things happen. It was an accident. Life goes on. Brutal. Then it went on for a little bit, and then Theodoric the Great. He was a king of Ostrogoths. He was the eastern part of the Roman Empire. In Europe, king of the Ostrogoths from 476 AD into 526 AD. 476 AD to 526 AD. Yeah. He banned it in 500 AD for he said it was causing too much of a disturbance and a distraction in the public and in the private home. In the public, you could kind of compare it to, like I say, there was no rules, there was no regulations for it. There wasn't like the man-made laws we have today as far as red lights, stop lights, things like that. It's comparing it to today. It's like if you go to your local grocery store and you about to go in there to get your groceries, whatever. And you see two guys standing out there fighting, bare knuckle, fighting to the death. Nowadays, you go to jail for that. You go to jail. But back then, that's just what it was. And another reason why Theodoric the Great banned it is because a lot of wives. He was a king. He didn't have to listen to them. A lot of kings, you had some brutal kings and dictators and emperors out there. You know what I mean? But as a king, sometimes you want to listen to the people. They are the people. You don't want an uprising, but a lot of wives were complaining because their husbands were coming home beat up, bruised up, broken hands, busted faces, busted eyes, and they couldn't work and provide. Back then a lot of guys were farmers, carpenters. They needed their hands, and if you didn't work, literally you didn't eat. So Theodoric he banned it, and like I say, it was just barbaric. That's what a lot of fans want nowadays anyway. Just two guys stand there and punch each other in the face. He said it was just too barbaric, And but the first documented signs of actual boxing, like I said, back then there wasn't the writing or this day this guy fought this guy, anything like that. But the first documented sign of a pugilism or boxing was in Great Britain in 1681. There was a guy, he was the Duke of Great Britain, excuse me, and he had his butcher and his butler. Those two guys, they fought for his entertainment. I think those two guys, the butcher and the butler, they kind of got a kick out of it too, but it was mainly for his entertainment. That was the first kind of documented type of, well, maybe not documented, but kind of well known, this this guy fought this guy, and there's names to it. You know, things not just two guys in the pub. You know, so. But moving on, I know just then sometime prior to 1866, a guy by the name of Jack Bolton's, can't say his names exactly. He's credited to establish some type of rules for it. You know, he said no eye gouging. You can't stick your thumbs in a guy's eyes and grab onto his testicles and squeeze them. Things like, you know, there was some type of rules to it. You know, and that's when it kind of sort of becoming a sport. And not just the old back in the BC and the early AD time, it was just barbaric guys, bare knuckle fighting to the death. I know the Romans and the Greeks, they take leather around their hands, and they just use that back when the guys were they used to fight like this, you know. You know, I mean, it's kind of funny today, but you know, this is what it was. But Jack Bolton, he established some rules sometime prior 1866, and the reason why he did that, because he was in a fight and one of his opponents died while they were fighting, and he kind of tore him up. He was, you know, barbaric, evil guy. He kind of tore him up inside. He liked to fight, you know. He like boxing. When I tell people, I mean, I like to fight. I like boxing. And they look like, what you mean you like to fight? I ain't going around like I'm a big bad wolf punching people. I like boxing. I like in a controlled environment. I mean, anybody can go get in a street fight. That's easy. But in a controlled environment with rules, two grown men in hand-to-hand combat, I like that. Whether it's Western style, or Eastern style boxing, or kung fu, whatever you want to call it, jiu-jitsu type, all that. You know what I mean? I like that. You know what I mean? I'm more of I love boxing more than anything else. In the UFC, MMA, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, and kung fu. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's when he established those rules, because one of his opponents died, and while they were fighting, Jack Bolton, I can't say it exactly, and he's known. A lot of people call him, I know him as the father of boxing. That's when it kind of sort of became a sport. Even if you weren't fighting because of a sport, if you upset with your neighbor, they were kind of establishing some rules to, you know, you guys gotta, you know, can't be going for the eyes and grabbing the guys, you know, privates and his testicles and all kind of things like that. So, but also in 1866, you had Marquis of Queensberry. He established limited rounds, because before that time, guys just fought forever. Fought till someone died, quit, or one guy was just pounding the crap out of another guy. You know what I mean? And there was no time limit. You just fought. The guy got tired. You won. I quit. Kind of thing. But he established that there was going to be a limited, you know what I mean? He didn't say 12, 15, 20 rounds. That was between the two fighters or whoever was, you know, and he was setting it up, you know. But he did establish that it was going to be 3 minutes. 3 minutes each round. That's what that, because there's 3 minutes around, 3 minutes per round in the sport of boxing today. But that's where it first established in 1866. Marquis Queensberry, you know. So that's when it started to become, you know, it was started picking up the steam and becoming more what it is, what is recognized as today, you know. So, but that rule officially passed in 1892. It's in 3-minute rounds, and he made gloves. Guys had to start wearing gloves. That was compulsory. You know, that was mandatory. Guys had to wear gloves, and the glove rule became that was a pass in 1892 as far as boxing. So that was official, because up until, see, going all the way back to 4000 BC up until 1892, you know, rules were just being established. Guys just fought bare knuckle, or like the Greeks and the Romans did way back in the day, just take some leather around their hands. So from 1866 to 1892 with Marquise Queensberry. It took some time, 30 years, you know what I mean, almost, for the guys to officially move away from bare knuckle. That's what they've been used to, you know what I mean. And so they started wearing gloves officially 1892. That's right around the time, you know, money started getting involved. You know, when money get involved, things change. That's why some fights don't happen in today's world of boxing because of money. You know, but yeah, that's that. 1892 was when officially there was a rule. I'm pretty sure you still had some round away backyard. Even today, if you're watching this, you're already on YouTube street fights. You see guys fighting bare knuckles for sport, or they really trying, you know, two guys angry at each other for whatever reason, you know what I mean. So I'm pretty sure that still goes on today, you know what I mean. So, but to be officially sporting event, you had to use gloves in 1892. So, and then 10 years later, in 1902, a London dentist by the name of Jack Marlise, something like that. He invented a mouth guard for boxers or for fighters to use. And when he invented it, the mouth guard was mainly used for training sessions. When guys were training for a fight. You know, they didn't use it in the actual fight. It was just kind of weird. But they just used it while they were training. And until 1913, I believe it was 1913, a welterweight, a guy by the name of Ted Kid Lewis. It was the first time he was the first one to wear a mouth guard in a prize fight, an actual boxing sporting event. You know, an actual sport now. It's an event now. He was the first one to do it in 19. Because nowadays, you know, obviously today's mandatory. You know, training, things like that. I've seen guys in the gym get punched, no mouth guard, they bite their tongue, bleeding like crazy, you know what I mean? Or no mouth guard, you get punched, and yeah, you lose a tooth. Hey, it happens. I don't care what kind of rules you have. If you've got two grown men fighting, you know what I mean, any type of combat type of sport, hey, it's brutal, you know what I mean? Even guys still have died from the sport. You know what I mean? Even though you're using gloves, I mean, it's brutal. It is what it is. Guys got the slurred speech, things like that, brain damage, things like that. So it's still brutal. It's still brutal, no doubt about it. But yeah. So, but that was the first time a mouth guard was actually used, in 1913, and then 1927 they established the NBA, not the basketball, but the National Boxing Association. You know what I mean? 1927. They looked to ensure that fights were fair. You know, you didn't have a guy that was, you know what I mean, that weighed like 125 pounds fighting a guy who weighed 250, solid, 220. Gonna kill that guy. You know, if it's just boxing, you know what I mean, hit that guy one time and kill him. If it was like, say, somebody like Floyd Mayweather fighting Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson got to catch him. If he hit him one time, it's over. It's over, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? So they just wanted to make sure the fights were fair. I think things like that. That's when they started coming out with the weight divisions, and you know, the fights were fair, and but their main goal of the NBA, the National Boxing Association. I think the basketball NBA that came out about 40 years later, something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, their main goal of the NBA was to set up championship fights between the best talented fighters during that time. You know, a lot of people complain that's not what's going on today. Money and other issues, promoters and all kind of other craziness going on. But back then, that wasn't an issue. That was what they did. You know, the best fought the best. So, which was good. Kind of got away from that, but you know, talking about money. A lot of things in life, talk about money, things change. So, but then now you got some of the you got what, 4 recognized boxing associations or establishments, whatever you want to call it. And today I know you got the WBA, like Michael Buffer for HBO. Let's get ready to rumble. I found out he gets paid $25 grand documentary on HBO. I think he said him and his brother they came up with that phrase, and I could be wrong. But let me know in the comment section. I believe that's what happened. I think it was him and Michael Buffer, him and his brother. They set that up and they just took off and ran with it. Now you know what I mean. So copyrighted the phrase and everything. You got Jimmy Lennon on Showtime. It's Showtime, but they say WBA, WBO light heavyweight. That's what I mean by the boxing association and established WBA, World Boxing Association, IBF, International Boxing Federation, WBC, World Boxing Council, WBO, World Boxing Organization. Yeah. And then you got the IBHOF, International Boxing Hall of Fame, where they kind of sort of like oversee those four establishments as far as they set up championship fights and who has which belt and things like that. So, but yeah. So I mean, and then you got overlooked a guy by the name of Abbott Joseph Liebling. A lot of people call him, I know him by AJ Liebling. He was the one who coined the phrase. He was a sports writer, journalist, I think for the New York Times, I believe, back in like the 30s and 40s. He coined the phrase "sweet science." That's what I call it. I call boxing the sweet science. And he was not an athletic guy at all. Kind of a heavy guy. Say he had small hands, but he was one of the few people like me. And I'm not the only one, but I'm one of the few fans of boxing and boxing fans who appreciate the sweet science. A lot of fans, they want that barbaric type stuff. What I call it, either street fighting or they want the Rocky Balboa. That's what I call it. Like everybody knows the movie Rocky. I love the movie Rocky. All 6 of them? How many he did? I like the first one. The underdog. A guy who stood no chance. And nobody gave him a chance. It didn't really stand up as far as athletically in the ring. Hand speed, had no talent, but he just had heart. Kept getting up, kept fighting, kept coming. That's right, you know what I mean? But as far as a sweet science standpoint, Rocky Balboa was a garbage. he was a good fighter, not a good boxer at all. He was a brawler, you know what I mean? But that's what a lot of fans want. That's why a lot of fans say like a lot of guys are boring nowadays, you know what I mean? But AJ Liebling, he thought boxing, to him, he said it's partly geometry. Because you had angles, you had spacing, timing, pacing, rhythm, distance. You use your lateral movement to create angles. You use your head movement to parry, and slip a punch to create angles. Lateral movement, back and forth movement and he said all those things, you use all of those tools, hand speed, to hit and not get hit. You know what I mean? That's the sweet science, And a lot of fans they don't like it. Like Floyd Mayweather, Guillermo Rigondeaux. A lot of people say these guys are boring. Man, that's boring. They don't do. But a guy like AJ Liebling, he would love to watch. I think he passed in 1963. Yeah, 1963, I believe. He passed. He would have loved to see a Floyd Mayweather box and a Guillermo Rigondeaux box. But a lot of guys say that, these guys are boring. You know what I mean? But that's sweet. I love the sweet science. I love the sweet science of boxing, man. The lateral movement. And a lot of people say it's dancing, it's running, you're boring. It's got to be effective now. It's got to be effective movement. Don't just be moved without doing anything. But if you landing like 50% of your punches like Floyd Mayweather does, and you're only getting hit 20% of the time, that's sweet science. Hit without being hit. It's not the barbaric times back in the day where guys fighting to the death. It's a sweet science. There's a science a method to the madness. There's a science to it. But don't get me wrong. If you go back and look at some of my prior videos, I love to see a guy get knocked out. Now I love to see. It's exciting. It's just entertaining. Don't get me wrong. I love that. But at the end of the day, boxing is a sport. It has the rules. There's a science to it. There's a method to the madness. the sweet science of, the object of it is to hit without being hit, and that's why you use the lateral movement, the back and forth movement, the counter punching, the counter punching, things like that, slip, parry, head movement, and things like that. You turn your offense into defense. Like if you're throwing the jab, instead of being lazy with your jab, you jab at the same time while you jab me, you still have your shoulder to protect your chin, things like that. You know what I mean? So, but I mean, that's what it is. A lot of fans, they don't like that. They say it's boring. They hate it. You know, I mean, teach their own. Everybody's different. You know what I mean? Everybody's different. But you know, it is what it is. You know what I mean? But I just wanted to do this video, man. I'm passionate about boxing. I love boxing. Just to talk about the history, the origins of it, so people can maybe kind of sort of understand where it came from to where it is today. You know, today is more about money than it is entertainment, and it's sometimes a little unfortunate. But but if anybody's out there is on the fence about it, man, please, man, and get into it, man. It's a beautiful sport, great sport, man. If you're trying to turn pro, no matter what your age, height, weight is, or you trying to do it for recreation and fun, or you doing it for fitness, for health, because you definitely get in shape boxing. There's no doubt about it. if you put something into it, I don't get me wrong. I tell people that I believe personally that boxers are the most in shape athletes in the world. Some people say swimmers, cyclists, soccer players, but I mean it's tough being a boxer, man. I tell people, get in front of a mirror. You don't necessarily got to be in front of a mirror. Just get a stopwatch, time yourself throwing punches for 3 minutes. And then imagine how somebody else punching you in your chest, your shoulder, your arms, you know what I mean, your stomach, your face, your head, punching you back while you throwing punches. Take a minute break because you only get a minute between each round, and do that for 12 rounds. Man, it's you get tired. A lot of guys get knocked out because of fatigue, you know what I mean? But that's why I want to do this video, is talk about the history of boxing, man. If anybody's on the fence about boxing, man, get into it, man. I love the sport. It's a great sport. Get you in shape, gives you self-confidence, you know what I mean? Things like that. Be able to defend yourself. Hopefully you don't never have to use it out on the street, you know what I mean? When everybody have to be safe. But, man, get into the sport, man. It's a beautiful sport. I'm one of the few people who I love the sweet science more than the seeing two guys just. I mean, if you already on YouTube, just put up a street fight. You know what I mean? There's plenty of those on there. I'm more of the sweet science type guy. You know what I mean? The lateral movement and all that good stuff. But yeah, man, just, let me know what you guys think, man. You know what I mean? If you're a fan of boxing, you know what I mean? Like my brother, he's more of the UFC, MMA kind of guy. I never really. When I was in the Army, a lot of guys in my unit was trying to get me over to the UFC type stuff, but that's not really my thing, you know what I mean? I'm more of a boxing kind of guy. But I'm not knocking it. That's just me, you know what I mean? But tell me what you guys think, man. Hit me up in the comments, man. I love talking boxing. We got some fights coming up, some good fights coming up, and you know, let me know what you guys think, man. You know, hit me up in the comments, and I hate you guys back. But that's it for me, man. It's your boy, The Real McCoy, man. I'm out. Peace.